Hi, I'm Nate Murphy, and this is my latest van conversion. In this van, I managed to fit seating for 4, an enormous kitchen, a full-size internal shower, and a king-size bed. And in this video, I'm going to show you how. The van I've chosen to convert is a long wheelbase Citroen Relay, which is the same as a Dodge ProMaster or a Fiat or a couple other vans. It's 6 meters long, about 20 feet, and that makes a good size for full-time van living. So as you can see in this van, we have a really large kitchen area, and this part turns into a shower, but I'll show you that in detail later. In the middle, we have seating for 4 around the table. Now the smart thing about this table is it helps us convert the bed from a double into a king size where you sleep long ways for people who are longer. It's hard for me to sleep side to side in the van just because I'm a little bit too tall and I feel constrained. So I prefer to sleep long ways, especially if there's 2 people in the van. So to allow us to move from a double bed to a king size bed, we've got 2 little clever things going on. Number 1 is the table, which we can fold down the sides and take off the top. Now, with the table folded, it's really strong. I can sit on this, no problem. It's like completely bomber. And then it makes this surface the same height as the other cushions. And that allows me to put this nice large bed plug, which allows us to basically extend the length of the bed from a double sideways to more or less a king size lengthways. The other thing with this cushion is I've got it divided and it folds. Now that means that when we're not using it as the extension of the bed, it can kind of come in place and we end up with a sort of sofa-like situation in the back of the van, so you can kind of use it as a comfortable place to chill out and relax at the back, and it doesn't have this like overwhelmingly large piece of wobbly foam, so it folds in and it's quite nice. So the table underneath has a few things going on. Has a bunch of these hinges which kind of lock it into this position, but when it's out, because these are a little bit loose, they've got some give, I've got a couple of sliders which makes the table all nice and rigid when you're using it. All we need to do is pop that on. Now we have a table for working, for eating. There is a little bit of give in it, but it's not too bad. It's perfectly acceptable, especially when it's got so much versatility. So while we're using the van, we can easily move the table out of the way. We can slide it over the bed and just like let it drop on the bed just by releasing the upright. Then we just hold it there if we don't want to stow it into this position. The other thing we can do with it is we can bring it higher and, sorry Tiger, we can also use it on a bed. Tiger doesn't like it, but we can use it on the bed to, I don't know, watch a movie or something, which is also pretty cool. We can also kind of use it as a sort of extension to our kitchen if we ever want to prepare an enormous amount of food. In my mind, we have enough space, but it's nice to be able to have a lot of space if you need it. I'm Nate Murphy, author of the Van Conversion Guide, and I just want to let you know that I'm hosting a free online training which will teach you how to make van life zero cost or profitable. In this free seminar, I will show you exactly how to choose a van, build it out in a profitable way, and avoid the mistakes that most people make. I will show you how I made van life completely free and a bunch of other stuff that people don't really talk about. If you want to join, click the link here or in the description and register for free. I'll see you there. Now, even when the bed is in king size mode, we still have 2 opposing seats, so we can still have a coffee. Let's say your partner doesn't want to get out of bed, but you're on it already in the morning. You can even use it as a workbench here, because right here we have a little door which is part of the shower, so you could actually use this as a work point if you need to, as a desk if the bed's occupied. So for me in a van conversion, I really like the fixed bed and a very convenient setup. I don't want to have to spend ages making something and unmaking something. So this system, we're just going to time it and see how long it takes to go from king size bed to table and back again. So that is 37 seconds. And to go from table to bed, that's 26 seconds. Not too bad. So I'm 6 foot, which is 183 centimeters. And with this setup, I am like very comfortable. My toes just going over the end of the bed. And look at the space. It's amazing to have an enormous bed in a van. And very happy with this little table setup. Gives me that flexibility, but without having the whole van taken up as a bed permanently. For me, one of the most important things when I'm designing a van to live in full time is that it doesn't feel compact and cluttered, and you have space. And if you're stuck in it for days when the weather's terrible, it doesn't feel claustrophobic. So for that reason, the bed is quite low. So we have our seats and then 15 centimeters of mattress. Above that, now we have the bed. And the downside of that, it means the garage isn't really tall. Upside is, look at this wonderful space, uncluttered, and the van just feels large. So in light of those design requirements, my personal design requirements, I've only put storage above the bed on one side. You could have two sides, but suddenly we're starting to feel kind of cramped and claustrophobic. So we have a set of 3 cupboards, simple wooden doors, wooden frame, and I've painted them with a blue, nice dark blue paint. These cupboards are enough to store all the clothes you need on the day-to-day use. Jackets you'll put somewhere else, but your day-to-day clothes for 2 people, this is easy enough, unless you've just bought way too many clothes for the road. So other storage around the bed compartment, we have a little personal drawer, personal effects, day-to-day stuff you need. And then we have a large drawer, which I will be using. Partly this will be the trash bin, so we'll keep organic waste somewhere else, but then this will be for dry waste or recycling. And at the moment there's a pot in there, but it can be used for any form of storage. Under this seat we have another storage hole. It's just a compartment. In here we have the hot water heater, and under there we have the heater for the air heater. But it does leave us with a bit of space that we can put things, extra jackets, stuff like that, which you kind of want to be able to access, but you don't want always around cluttering up the space. To make these, all I've done is I've just used the frame. I've cut a piece of wood, 2 holes, joined them up, sand it down, and it's good enough. You can easily access it. And because I've got these edges to help the cushion stop sliding around, it just self-contains itself really easily. On the other side, we have a fridge, but we also have a safe. I've taken a safe which would normally be horizontal on the floor, and because the space was available, I've put it in here, and I've got a little catch, clicks it up so we can do the things, put the stuff in the safe, and then we can pop it back in and we can lock it. When the majority of theft that occurs in vans is smash and grab, it's very quick, it's in like less than 2 minutes. If there's a safe, they're just not going to be able to get that stuff in the speed that they want to take. Partly they don't know what's in there, and otherwise if they're tooled up, if they've got angle grinders and things, then nothing's going to stop them, whatever your security systems. So it's a good place to store passports, maybe cameras and laptops, especially if you're parking somewhere where you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, or it's a city and there's a higher chance of a break-in. So another storage point here is above the cab. Now in these vans there's quite a narrow gap, so it's a little bit awkward in terms of opening this door, but I would imagine only really using it for things that we don't need to access very often. Maybe during summer you put your winter coats in there, or a thick duvet, or in winter you put your thin blanket in there, and while you're using the thick duvet, and vice versa. So it's actually like quite a big space. It's just a bit awkward to access, and I wouldn't use it for everyday stuff, but it is there and we can use it. So at the back of the van we have the garage. It's a decent size. On the left we've got electronic components, and we also have a slightly intruding water tank, but it's big enough to fit a few big boxes. I don't tend to put a lot of drawers on runners, just means I've got more flexibility and it's a bit lighter overall. Now, just for the sake of squeezing every possible space out of a design, I have this space on top of my electric box, and it's just where I can stuff stuff. So let's have like roll mats, tents, things like that. I can just shove them down there, stuff I don't access all the time, and it's a good place to store it, and I'm just maximizing all of my storage. So I've got a sliding panel goes all the way back. And with that, I can access my fuse box and all of my electronics. So here we have my fuse box. This is connected to all my switches and all my appliances. We have a cut-off switch, which cuts off everything to my fuse box. So if I need to turn off everything very easily, I can do that with a switch. I have an earth bar, so all of my earths go into this and then is earthed to the body of the van. This is the solar charge controller. The solar charge controller takes the solar energy, and this one basically just charges the battery with the solar, and then the battery goes direct to my fuse board. Other solar charge controllers will also power your fuse board, so depends on what one you buy. This is a DC-DC charger, and essentially it takes power from my alternator in the engine and uses it to charge my battery. Because this van is new and modern alternators have all sorts of smart systems, you pretty much need a slightly more sophisticated one than a standard split charge. So it's a bit more expensive, but it's the right one for the job. I also have a cutoff switch on this one, so I can take it out of the loop. Now, behind here, you can just about see it, is a lithium-ion battery. It's a 400 amp hour battery by a company called Ampere Time, which are extremely good value for money. They seem to be quite high quality product, and the cost is significantly lower. This one was about $1,800. Compare that to some of the big brand names and you are saving thousands and thousands of dollars in your battery. So that's one 400 amp hour battery, which is, in my opinion, enormous. It's almost 3 times as much as I had in my last van in terms of storage. So it's definitely sufficient for anything I need. Now, worth noting, if you have a lithium battery, again, it needs to be charged at the right voltage, and your battery-to-battery, your DC-DC charger will enable that even if you have variation in your output from your alternator. Also over there is an inverter. It's a Vitron inverter, and it basically takes the charge from the battery, which is DC and 12 volt, and turns it into 230 volt in case I want to power things like my MacBook charger or any other appliance. So go into that solar charge controller. On the roof, I have 2 house panels. Now, what by house panel, I mean your general commercial panel that you'd put on the roof of your house. These ones are slightly shorter than the standard ones. You can get different sizes. And the great thing about that is they fit side to side. So I've got 2 of those. They're 295 watts each. So we have about 600 watts of solar on the roof. Now, because I don't have lots of stuff on the roof, I've only got 1 fan at the very front. It means I don't have to put lots of small panels around objects, which generally means you're buying solar panels which are made for boats or camper vans specifically, and they tend to be very expensive. House panels, however, have come down in price massively over the last 10 years, and it's a very good value way to get a lot of watts on your roof. From my fuse board, I have a set of looms that come up to my switch panel. Now, my switch panel has 6 switches, 5 of them are different light circuits, and 1 of them is for the water pump. Now, again, my personal feeling is that lighting is really important for the van. I don't want stark lights which make it feel cold and depressing. I want warm lighting, and I want some lighting which is indirect when you're winding down in the evening, and you want some like soft, gentle light. So in order of dimness, we're going to start with the lowest, coziest lighting. I'm going to work up to the nice bright lights. So on the sides of the beds, I have these fabric panels which are covered with like a cool jungle theme fabric, and I have a strip of LEDs which are kind of in this protruding piece of hardwood. And on this side we have a dimmer, which means you can really turn those lights down low depending on the mood you're trying to set. And above, on the other side of this cupboard, we have a couple of spots which can kind of just give you a little bit extra for reading. So you can essentially kind of lean up under here and you've got really good light on whatever you're looking at. Similarly, above the bed, we have another switch which does the 2 lights directly above the bed. Now, with these 3 light systems, we have a really nice, bright back of the van. Now, when I'm designing my lighting system, I tend to try and divide the van up into zones. So here we have the bed zone, which we can turn all these lights off independently. And then we have the zone in the middle. And here we have 4 lights. These go directly above the table. And now someone could be here doing something with good light, and there's no light shining in the eyes of the person who's still trying to sleep. And then at the front of the van, we have the kitchen. In the kitchen and shower area, we have all the brightness that we can possibly desire. I have 2 lights here. We've got 2 lights inside this area, and then we've got 2 bright strips here. So when we are doing our cooking, it's always really well lit. we always see what we're doing. We're not going to cut off our finger by accident. Now that leads us neatly onto the kitchen and the second smart space-saving design, which we'll get onto, and that is the shower. So this is the kitchen. In the kitchen, we have a large worktop. We have a sink and burner combo unit from Dometic. We have a tap, which is running off a different pump to the shower, but we'll talk about that in the water system. And here on the side, we have a food waste. This means that when we're cooking, we can just put our food waste here and dry waste somewhere else for recycling. And then when this little thing's full, we can empty in a bush or bury in a hole or put it into proper disposal. Within the kitchen, we've got a bunch of storage. I've got one large storage drawer, which pulls out. This gives us a lot of space to store dried food goods, rice, pasta, or whatever else we want to store for cooking. To the left, we have slightly shorter drawers because behind here, I've got a water tank. And these drawers, essentially, we've got cutlery, knives, forks. In the second one, we've got plates and cups and bowls. In the third one, we've got bowls, plates, and in the bottom one, we've got frying pan, saucepan, and strainer. So the way I've designed these drawers, I've got a central rib between them out of the same hardwood, and it just means that there's always this place very easily to basically clip your drawers in and stop them moving around when you're driving. In this corner, I have a panel which I can remove. That's really just, the reason it's a panel is just because I'm just trying to keep the space as small as possible. And inside here, we have a wastewater tank. Now, I won't use this wastewater tank all the time because coming out of my sink, I've got a flexible hose and I've got it going, currently it's going into a pipe which goes straight out through the bottom of the van. That means if you're somewhere where it doesn't matter if you're, washing up water, or especially if you're using organic soap, just drains out into the land. But if I am somewhere it matters, I can just take that flexible pipe and I can put it in this tank, and I've got 20 litres of waste storage and I can empty it somewhere appropriate. Above the kitchen unit, we've got a simple shelf. It's got some nice lights underneath it, and it's just a place to store glasses, soap, washing up liquid, things like that. In this little wall place, I realised there's space for a nice spice rack. So we have a spice rack. Haven't got any spices in it yet, but it will look nice when they're all in line. And it's quite snug, so they didn't rattle around too much. Under the seat, we've got a fridge. Now the fridge, it's got a big click, comes out. It's a Dometic compressor fridge. And what I've done is, because of the space is so limited and I'm trying to get as much seating area as possible here, I've got a little flap in the seat. So the seat flaps up and now we can access the fridge completely. I've made the runner so it just stops shy of hitting this unit, so we're not damaging the unit with the front of the fridge. So as you can see, we have enormous kitchen area. It's really gonna be amazing to use this when we're cooking, but at the same time, this is the smart part probably of the whole van. And that is the kitchen unit folds upwards and turns ourselves into a shower. So we have a little door, you can go in the door, and inside here we have a toilet, which you could use as a toilet, or you have a full-size shower, and essentially all you need to do is put the shower head up and turn it on. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm wearing clothes. In the inside of the shower, we have a short shower curtain that only goes this far, and that just pops down. And there's one popper, goes on the side of the shower panel, and that's it. We're ready to shower. Now, the shower curtain is all on poppers, so if it's wet and you suddenly want to go somewhere, you can just take the shower curtain out and you can dry it like a piece of clothing outside, or you can put it somewhere ready, or you could just put it on the floor and then later hang it up to dry. The shower itself has a mixer valve. It's basically a standard house shower, and it's fed by a hot water tank within a gas water heater, which is made by Propex. Now, the reason I've done a shower like this is partly because when I made this van, we also made a course to show you how to build a van. So I wanted to show you all of the water systems that you might want to install. However, I really don't like having a huge box in the van. I want to find a way around that But at the same time, I don't really like the idea of shower units where you're kind of constructing something, or it's like a half squat bath or something. I much prefer one action, then you have the room. So really we have two actions. We lift the side, we make the room, and then we drop down the short shower curtain, which stops the water spilling out anywhere else. That to me is acceptable. Two actions and you have the thing. And then really, once you put the curtain up, you have one action and then you're back to kitchen mode. It's as simple as I could imagine it, and I really like this design. Along with that, we've got a few design considerations here. I really wanted this to have the same overhanging edge all the way around, which did make it a little bit tricky with how we made it. But there's other ways you can make this more simply. But overall, in terms of design, I really love this. I think it's going to be a pleasure to travel in a van where you've got this internal shower, but also when you're not using it, an enormous kitchen. So for power within the van, beside the bed, I have two twin USB points, one here, one on the other side. And then also near the table, we've got another two USB points, which is also a 12 volt. If we take out the USB plug, another 12 volt point, which again, we can put USB plugs in. On this side, we have from the inverter, we have the mains voltage plug, which also has a couple of USBs if you want to use that. So on the outside of the van, we have a bonded window, single skin, which means it will condensate a little bit, but you end up with a really nice big window. So I've put one of those on. And on the sides, again, I have two bonded windows, and these two open. You've got little sliders on them. These things are pretty easy to install and not too expensive. We've also installed a Maxx fan air vent, and to be quite honest with you, I'm a convert. I think these things are really good. They're one of the better quality fans out there, and this one comes with a remote control. So it will just open itself, which is quite nice, and you can change the airflow, which is going in or out of the van. Now, for these side windows, I decided to go a little over top, and I've got these shutter systems, which allow us to black out very, very easily. They open, and they open with a fly screen, and now we have like the real benefit of these side windows, and that is when we turn up the volume on the fan, all of that air which is going out of the fan is coming in through this window. So if we want to have cool air coming in over our bodies at night, I can just feel that drifting in, and if I open the other side, it will do the same from the other side. I kind of wish that I did this in previous vans because it works really, really well. And with your Maxx air fan, because you've got a remote, keep your remote by your bed, and if you need to make it cooler or you made it too cold, you can shut it off, or you can shut up your windows and you'll have restricted that airflow. Now, because these boxes are essentially right up against the van, they're essentially behind the vapor barrier. So to make them and seal them was basically an entire day's work, but the result is really nice. And I cut these shutters at an angle, which means when you shut them, there's no light coming in. Also, conveniently by the bed, we have the control for the Propex heater. This is a heater that heats the air inside your van while the fumes of the gas burning go outside the van. So they're two sort of separated systems. They're really standard heaters in a lot of vans, and they work really well. This heater allows us to go from have fan mode just to circulate air, not really useful, but mostly you can set your thermostat and it will come on and off overnight and keep your van toasty warm. To power the Propex heater, we have a refillable LPG or propane tank, and that's been attached underneath the van, and from there it goes to a manifold. The manifold is a junction, and you can turn each line off, and that goes to three things. It goes to the hot water heater, which runs the shower, it goes to the Propex, which heats the air, and it goes to the hob, which cooks our food. So to control the gas, we have the manifold. The manifold's just behind this little door with a magnet catch. So the manifold just allows us to turn on and off any of the components which runs on the gas, so the hob, the water heater and the Propex, at one central point. The gas tank has a sensor in it, and this is the little display. So to turn it on, and it will basically slowly go up as it measures how much gas is in my LPG tank underneath, because obviously even if there was a dial on it, you'd have to get underneath the van to find out. This remote sensor is great because it just tells you where you're at and you know when to fill up your gas. This little thing is the control for the water heater. It has the option to run on electric or on gas. I haven't wired the electric up because my inverter's not quite beefy enough and I don't really need it to run on electric, but if I turn it on gas, then it will essentially run. Now, it's got a red light, it's complaining because of the gas manifold's turned off, but essentially you would just turn it on and then it would just use the gas. It would heat the hot water, of which it stores about 15 litres inside it. And then in about 20 minutes, you're probably ready to have a shower. And then you can use the thermostat in the shower to manage the actual temperature. So in this van, I've got 2 different water tanks, and one is under the bed and it only goes to the shower. And the other one is here and it only does the water for the drinking or your washing up. The water tank, which goes to the shower, goes to a pump, an accumulator, to the hot water heater and to the shower, so that those all run in one line. It's only used when we're using the shower. And the water tank here has a submerged pump. It's a little pump which just whirs away and just brings the water only up into my sink. So one little nice touch to the system is that I have a pipe which goes from the shower tank to the sink tank, and if I turn a valve, which is in the back of this little removable panel cupboard, I can turn it on and it will just start pumping the water from the shower tank to the sink tank. So if for some reason you suddenly realize you've run out of drinking water, don't worry, you can turn that one on, pump the water through, but you can't run out your drinking water accidentally by having a too long, too luxurious shower. So to make this curtain, it's the easiest possible way I can imagine to make a curtain without having to do a hell of a lot of sewing. Now, this is basically a PVC backed fabric and it's a little bit stretchy, which is quite useful, but mostly because it's like sort of 50% rubber, it doesn't fray. It's not like a normal fabric. So all I've done is I've put these little poppers on it, and the poppers, one part screws into the wood. They're very easy to attach, and then we have a nice blackout curtain. And the poppers, which are part way up, correspond with some poppers on the top edge, and all I've got to do is take that middle point, roll it up, and there we have our curtain up and stowed. And just like the shower curtain, there's no sewing involved and it works really, really well. So I'm just going to give you a brief breakdown of the materials and the finishes we've used in here. This is a shower wall. It's actually like a very, very high quality dense plywood, which has got this front layer, which is actually have these like grooves cut in, so it really looks like tiles. Actually, it's not that necessary. It was expensive and it was very hard to bend. So you're probably better off just using general wet wool with a printed tile pattern or whatever. On each side, we have the slat wool. Now I've just bought it in these strips. So it comes with a felt and then these MDF strips, which got a walnut laminate on. They look really nice. It was a little bit pricey, but the end result is really nice and it was quite easy to install. I just had to make sure I had some studs in the right place and I just nail gunned them on. On the roof, we have some pine cladding. This stuff has just been covered with Danish oil to protect it. And then on the side, we have the same cladding, but we've painted it white just to have a different effect. So although most of the structures of the van has been built using pine for the stud work and everything behind the scenes, what I've done is I've used some redwood, which is a pine. It has a nice kind of reddish color to it. And what I've done is I've used that for all of the edges, coming around here, the front of the kitchen, and it just gives a nice feel. The flooring is a engineered wood, so it's got a laminate of real oak, and beneath that it's just other composite. It means it's more stable than natural wood, and again you can get it in a thinner variety. You don't want to lose too much height of the van, so this is only 12mm thick. I've used the same flooring around the seating area because you'll find that this area gets very dirty as people put their feet around it. So using the wood means it's very durable and it's going to be easy to clean. I have to say, I always confused by white vans where everywhere is white, especially below the waistline, because if you're living outside in a van conversion and if you have everything white, it's going to be kind of brown and murky, or you're going to be cleaning that thing a lot. So I would generally go for slightly darker colors or wood or something just so it doesn't show up the dirt. All of the blue paint is a satin Rust-Oleum evening blue. It's like a nice dark blue, and it really works well with these handles, which I've either got from Etsy or from Amazon, not wildly expensive. All the grey in the van is a chalk finished Rust-Oleum paint, and the nice thing about this Rust-Oleum paint is you don't need to use a primer, you just paint it on with a roller and then go again, 2 coats and you're done. Now I put a little picture here, and these are just like cheap IKEA frames, but I've just put a little corner bracket screwed in and screwed against the wall, and then it kind of all fits in. It looks quite nice. In my mind, I was gonna have more pictures, but actually when you're sitting here, you don't really want to have your head button against some picture frame, so there's only one. So this picture, I illustrated it, but the main thing is I put 4 on because your back door, you're slamming it all the time, and if you don't have it well attached to the wall, then in the end it will pop off. So you need to just fix them a little bit more securely than you might imagine. So the Propex air, the hot air, comes out here. It would be nice to have it somewhere else, but we're so space constrained and trying to do so much with the space that this was really the only place I could put it. This is the fill point for the water tank, which is just in here. This is the fill point for the shower water tank. This is the fill tank for the refillable gas tank. This is the external baffle for the water heater. So this is where your air goes in to heat the water, to burn the gas, and then the fumes come out the top. So my shower drain, I don't have a grey water tank under the van just because I'm just too space constrained with the underslung gas tank, and generally the places I go, it doesn't matter if a little bit of shower water drains out. Before, in previous vans, I have a shower out the back of the van. I think that's perfect, but this system also works. And what I've got instead is I have a flexible hose, and this comes from my shower waste. Now, this gives me the options. One, I can use that waste tank inside if I don't want it to flow outside, or I can just leave it bundled up and it will just drain out onto the land. If you didn't notice, I am offering a free online training which will help teach you how to make van life free or profitable. In this video, I will show you exactly how to buy a van, how to fit it out in a proper way, and teach you how to avoid the mistakes that most people make, and all the other stuff that almost nobody else talks about. If you are thinking about converting a van or living van life, it'll be one of the most valuable things you will ever watch. Just click the link, register for free, and I'll see you there. Another great place to start is to get the van conversion guide. It's packed with useful information and includes 20 video lessons to help you convert a van. Check our website, all the information is there.